in the red. A Terran player, it is Dandy.
On the bottom right, in the blue, it is TerrOr.
We were talking about Latin American fans. And you know who I haven't seen in the chat? I have not seen Bob Malcolm. But you know what? I think TerrOr is channeling his Bob Malcolm because he used all of his energy in that last game to just absolutely crush TerrOr. So we'll see if finally this is going to be not just TerrOr season, but also Bob Malcolm season. Because TerrOr looked very good in the last game. Now we've got horizontal spawns on Sylphid. I don't think this is really a major thing in TVT. Do you have anything that comes to mind here? Like something that, okay, who's blue? That TerrOr or Dandy could potentially exploit?
Well, these are definitely better positions for TerrOr because the Dandy's main is open, right? Like to dropship play much more than TerrOr's main is. So that's literally the only thing that comes to mind. But drops not really relevant until much later, especially in this meta in TVT. Depends on how how both these players choose to play, but if we're talking about like Korean TVT, they really don't come until much later. So though I've seen both these players use some pretty unconventional builds in this matchup, and it looks like exactly what you said, Nyokin. Dandy is forced to play this 12 gas style now. He has been bullied into playing safely, so definitely a win there for TerrOr. But TerrOr on his side is not doing anything special. We'll have to see if either of these players continues to mine gas after the first 100 gas. I'm gonna throw this out there because if I'm right, people will think I'm a prophet, and if I'm wrong, everyone's gonna just forget about it. But Dandy might actually go 2-port Wraith or something.
You think he's gonna do 2-port Wraith on one base, or what?
Yeah, I've seen him do it a lot.
No, that is not happening. He might go 2-port Wraith on 2 base. He's got the micro for it, but okay, he's pulling off of gas right now. So
lucky.
that prediction.
I'm telling you, people are just gonna forget. They're gonna forget it in 2 minutes, so it's fine.
Well, he could definitely pull it out now. I know we were talking about Dandy earlier, and you were telling me that he had a Goliath build, and that's another Boomer build.
Yeah, well, yeah. No comment.
No comment.
I saw him pull it off, pull it out off of a gas list. So we'll see what his build here is. There's a lot of tricky things you can do, man. First of all, Dandy does not have a scout inside of TerrOr's main, though. It looks like TerrOr does have. Okay, he is getting a scout now. TerrOr did not bank any additional gas. The one thing you can do is actually build a starport and like a proxy starport at this point, and if the other player is going like a vulture opening, they just instantly lose. So it looks like we've passed that time, though. Both players are going to go for a command center, though. Dandy will be able to scout that there's a command center. I mean, he has an SV in the base, whereas TerrOr has no idea. So in theory, this should change TerrOr's build a bit. He would have to build a bunker in this situation because, well, I mean, his SCV did die late, but you definitely, you're safe. There you go. He is building the bunker, so I do like that from TerrOr. But that is going to set him behind a bit relative to Dandy. It looks like Dandy is going to put a second factory. He's actually making vultures off of his first factory, not getting an add-on. So this, to me, is signaling that he's going to get an armory and do something like 2 factory vulture into Goliath. And TerrOr, meanwhile, is getting the add-on in his base. So he is going to get a tank and be ultra safe here with the bunker.
A lot of the times when you get this bunker, it means you're, of course, going into tank, but a lot of times you also see Wraith follow-up. Now, that's what I thought I saw, is I thought a vulture ran by, gets the command center SCV, might get this factory SCV, and I did notice that Dandy was cutting SCVs to get out these extra vultures, so this might backfire on Dandy. The vulture run by comes in, but tank is already out, and this is Sylphid, where you can easily block the entrance. And now this is a move that Dandy loves to do. He loves to just instantly counterattack you, Dandy likes to do, can instantly counterattack, but it looks like TerrOr's not actually willing to move out with his single tank. He now I think he has confirmed that it was 3 vultures, so I'm kind of surprised that he's not just sending it across because it's so strong. You know there's no mines. You know there's no upgrades.
Right.
So I'm a bit shocked by that.
Yeah, but the other side of the coin is that when you see these 2 factories and... Okay, actually TerrOr went for a really early armory, so he was expecting kind of a starport build here from Dandy, so playing very safe. The other side of it is that from what TerrOr saw, I mean, now he sees just how delayed this build from Dandy is, but if you push out with just the 1 tank and you don't have double factory behind it, and Dandy just starts producing like Goliaths off of both his factories there, it's very easy for him to repel that attack. So I kind of get, I do like TerrOr playing passively here. I mean, he's already ahead. Like, he got a lot of SCVs with that one vulture. He also got the vultures that were trying to counterattack. So, and oftentimes we actually see players kind of just throw away their lead when they're overly aggressive. You know, TerrOr just is going to sit back here, macro up. I really like that he's taking his time here. And we'll see if he tries to take an expansion. That would be very, very interesting. Okay.
Well, mines are being set up by Dandy. TerrOr's going into pure tank, and he has siege mode. That is going to mean he's going to take a 3rd base. And behind this, it looks like Dandy's got his armory done. He's building a Goliath. I did notice that TerrOr also had his armory. Meanwhile, I know for a fact that Dandy's STV count is obviously much lower than TerrOr, so the 3rd base is going to be up much quicker. That's going to give him access into 3rd gas, and usually Terran players start +1 once they can get their 3rd gas, but I didn't see the armory spinning right there, so it could be a little bit of a mistake. Dandy's definitely not spinning. He doesn't have the gas for that, but I'm looking at like what they actually have. I'm kind of surprised that neither player really has that many factories. Just now, 3rd factory going down for TerrOr.
Yeah, well, you know, I actually really like this move from TerrOr, especially given the builds that both players went for. If neither player goes for like a very aggressive, like very high tempo type of opening, like the quick vultures or even the wraith sometimes, and mostly just 3 factory vultures. If you take an expand like this and just kind of siege tanks up, even if Dandy were to put down 5 factories while you're putting down your 3rd command center, you're gonna have as many tanks as Dandy, and being in that advantageous position, I think you can hold on to everything. So I really like how TerrOr is playing with a faster expansion here, given the fact that both players went for kind of lower tempo builds, in that, you know, Dandy obviously has this tank Goliath going, and TerrOr himself went for tank. So it's gonna pay off really for TerrOr, and he was able to do this because his rack scouting did so much for him, and even the vulture. Oh, but this is weird. That is a lot of factories to be adding right away. You almost can't support this without cutting a bunch of SCVs, but this is going to be a very, very aggro style from TerrOr.
Yeah, so this is something that TerrOr does sometimes, is he just puts down a ton of factories all at once, and he goes from having this kind of low unit count to just all of a sudden just having a ridiculous flood of units. And because he's been pumping out tanks this whole time, once he does like 2 or 3 cycles of vultures, it's not going to be, you know, a majority of vultures. It's going to still be like 15 tanks. He's actually going to just have insane DPS with insane bustability with all those vultures soaking hits. You can see the difference in the tank count because Dandy only has 5. Meanwhile, it looks like TerrOr has like 8 tanks already. Dropship is moving across the map. So we were talking about the Goliath earlier. Looks like this is going to be a Goliath drop, and surprisingly, Goliath drops are very strong, and this is going to force a lot of units back, not just vultures. Vultures can't defend this.
Yeah, I'm totally right about that, and this is going to really pick apart TerrOr's build, though. At the end of the day, as TerrOr, all you have to do is walk the siege tank here and just siege it up. He needs to get an eBay, but see, the thing is, like, he got all these factories, but I guarantee you he's not producing out of all of them. You just can't produce out of this many factories all at once. Okay, we're getting a bit of lag. Hopefully it settles down here. But yeah, you know, like at this point, you cut so many things to get these factories out. Like, one is you're not going to be able to afford your starport. The other is now he's going to struggle to get an eBay, and then even if he does, then he's not using the factories that he made. So kind of just quite a lot of inefficiencies here. But and this dropship is doing so much damage. Meanwhile, Dandy is taking his third, so really Dandy equalizing the fact that he had a slower third than TerrOr, and now he's scaling his factory production up, but kind of like in a more sustainable manner. So his infrastructure is good. Like he has a starport, he's going to be able to start +2 much more easy, like his science facility and +2. Whereas TerrOr, like, yeah, he's going to have a nice power spike here, but if he doesn't do significant damage or like gain significant map control off of this, he's going to start falling behind, because +2 is such an important break point in this matchup.
Well, Dandy unknowingly salvaged the game with this single Goliath drop. There's multiple things that has happened. First off, of course, TerrOr can't support those 8 factories. Second, I was looking in the main, there's 1 on gas for TerrOr in the main. So he either needs to fix that very soon, otherwise he's going to be gas starved. You can see it right there. Look how gas starved he is. He has no gas coming in, basically. I don't even think he's mining gas at his nat or third base. That's how slow it is. So I'm very, very worried for TerrOr. Look, okay, it looks like he's fixed it in the nat, but the main, look, only 1 there, 1 at the third base too. So this is, even though Dandy only has 2 gases running, he's mining his gas flat out better than TerrOr right now. He's also got, I think, better saturation of SCVs now. Now he's also got the arc going into the middle of the map, so he can start thinking about splitting the map in his favor. You can see he's taking the top left base already, so he's gonna be having 4 base up and running. He's got +1 weapon already, so that's very nice for him too.
I'm actually curious if this is almost intentional, because he might be feeling starved for minerals. And I mean, you know, it looks nice when you put down all those factories, but it's just not sustainable that fast. So really, that was a huge blunder by TerrOr. That was a huge blunder by TerrOr. I mean, I know that obviously Dandy, his drop came in at the right time, and that did a lot of damage. Looks like Dandy is getting into position to try and attack this third base here. Now remember, this isn't real high ground, so the tanks will be able to hit 100% the opposing tanks on the enemy high ground.
TerrOr's trying to bust.
Is TerrOr? Yeah, I mean,
well, he has to, because otherwise Dandy's gonna have this huge snake
that's a lot of vultures
on him.
Yeah. Well, here he comes. I mean, that's a lot of vultures. They're gonna screen for the tanks, but not sieging just yet. TerrOr's not sieging. He's just attack moving through these tanks, and it's looking like it's working. A lot of the vultures are taking the brunt of the siege damage, and how does that even happen? That was like 50 million trillion tanks from Dandy sieged up, and TerrOr didn't even siege his tanks up. I have no idea how that worked. I mean, Dandy, you know, if you're in Dandy's position, you need to look at that fight and tell your tanks to focus the enemy tanks. You cannot have them waste shots on the vultures, and I think he was not paying attention and just got completely overrun, and now all of a sudden this factory count is going to be insane from TerrOr. How the tables have turned in just a matter of seconds, but will he have enough to push through here?
Yeah, this looks like this was a bit of a suicide attack, because first off there were mines there, and then they weren't in siege mode. Meanwhile, a drop at the same time drew a lot of the attention from TerrOr over there, so a bit of a botched attack after such an insane bust in the middle. Like you said, Dandy didn't focus at all, and now there's still a 30 supply lead for Dandy. Still a lot of tanks for TerrOr though, but his main has been shut down. There's some more tanks up here, so I guess a few vultures are going to fall. Meanwhile, Dandy has his 4th base up and running. It looks like he's taken his gas over there too. Now the big question to me, has TerrOr started +2? Because if he started +2 and he gets up by contain, it's going to be much harder for Dandy to bust out, whereas you know, what we just saw was only TerrOr busting out into +1 weapon. It looks like Dandy's actually the one that's going to have +2, because I haven't seen Science Facility for TerrOr. I don't think I've seen a starport for TerrOr, right? Like, I don't see it anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, like I said, TerrOr has to gain significant map control here. If he does deny this third gas, that could even up the game. You know, this third gas is very important, but Dandy, his infrastructure, like, is there. You know, he has the +2 coming and upgrades again. I cannot understate just how important upgrades.
How important?
How important there are, okay.
Well, we've got a counterattack to the third base. and this will kill probably a decent amount of SCVs, but that's expensive units for TerrOr after not being mining in his main for so long. Well, this is actually doing more than I expected. I thought SCVs were going to try and engage it, but so many vultures there are going to be a shield for those tanks. Meanwhile, Dandy has set up a tank line at his, I guess, high ground that's not high ground base, so he could potentially take that, but this mineral only is about to die.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on, Nyokin, man. I don't understand this matchup. It seems like I really don't know. I mean, 1 minute TerrOr looked like he was in an unwinnable position, then unlosable, then unwinnable, and now almost unlosable. I mean, he's denying 2 bases. I don't know how this happens. TerrOr can start expanding to mid right now. The problem is TerrOr still needs to start getting upgrades. Dandy, he does lose these 2 bases, but now he does have access to kind of this bottom sector of the map. He will have access to a 3rd base and a 4th base. So really, it might look like a setback for him, but again, at the back of everyone's minds should be that he does have the upgrade advantage. He does have, Starport, Science Facility, can start making vessels to really start complementing his units, and he will have the resources to back that up. And now he's going to have also the supply lead. Whereas TerrOr, he's still on these 3 bases. He does not have an extra command center. He is expanding to his mineral only, which is a interesting decision because the 3rd gas at that high ground 3rd, it's very low. It might actually deplete soon. So TerrOr is going to be gas starved if he does not look for another gas base.
Oh no!
Now TerrOr is playing overly aggressive. Loses a lot of these tanks.
Yeah, 3 tanks are going to fall down, and even though the mineral only got denied, those tanks at the top left, and vultures, of course, are pretty much dead weight because that's not an important base for Dandy. This bottom side of the map is more important. He now has access to 4 gas. Now here comes another attack. Oh, I thought it was going to be another attack from TerrOr, and I think this definitely would have gone way worse, especially with those 3 tanks on the high ground. But meanwhile, TerrOr is taking mid right. I did see that he did complete a starport. I didn't see Science Facility anywhere, but that armory should have been spinning for Dandy for a long time, so +2 should be done. It is done. Meanwhile, that +2 that is spinning for TerrOr pretty much just started, so there's like a 2.5 minute opportunity for Dandy to trade insanely well. Now here comes another big attack to the top side of the map, but there's still so many tanks up here.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I mean, again, upgrades are so important. These two-shot tanks are going to be crazy good for Dandy. This is a good fight. Dandy does get the siege off before TerrOr does, and TerrOr's not quite sieging up his units, though they're fighting in range of the siege tanks of his opponent. So, and now Dandy, yeah, this time around he is focus firing TerrOr's units, but yeah, pretty decent trade all things considered. TerrOr is behind on upgrades, and he did get basically a very late siege, and half of his tanks weren't even sieged, but probably he had way more supply in that fight. You can see Dandy does have a supply lead at this point, both players expanding, but as the dust settles from, I'm not too sure actually, because TerrOr, look, he does have access to the top side of the map if he chooses to split the map as is currently being split. Dandy, a lot of these tanks here are kind of far back. They're not really denying any of the map from TerrOr. So despite the fact that TerrOr, I would say right now is decently behind, he has the opportunity to even it out and kind of get ahead in the late game.
Yeah, that is definitely true. I was thinking, well, if TerrOr tries to take top middle and overly defend that, Dandy can instantly counterattack and then set up a contain where TerrOr's never getting out. Just sit at the natural. But I see that the tank line of TerrOr is already set up there. He obviously realizes that tanks are now moving into position. So I think mid-right should be up and running pretty soon. The vultures will get cleared out. We see that the Nat and 3rd base and main are all basically dry for TerrOr, so he needs this base. Really, he's only mining off of this mineral only at bottom left, and also all of his gases should basically be depleted now that it's at the 20-minute mark, so this is a crucial base for him. Meanwhile, 2 fresh bases with the 3rd base and 4th base for Dandy. Now it looks like he's trying to take top left. Yeah, this is going to be another push out here. Only 4 tanks set up, and Dandy should easily crush this.
Yeah, and if he crushes this, Dandy can get into position to deny this mid-right base, and he's going to crush this very efficiently. Does not lose tanks, and meanwhile he eats up a lot of Terror's tanks. And the tank count is so crucial in this matchup. You know, this is one thing that I've noticed Dandy does do better, or has done better in this game, is that he does siege his tanks like very early, especially when they get in range of the opponent's tanks. So that allows him to trade much more efficiently. And now he opens up the map for himself. You know, he can now start taking bases. The thing is, TerrOr does have a lot of units left at the top left quadrant of the map, but this force here is gonna be so overwhelming. I can't see TerrOr holding on to the mid-right base. TerrOr, though, rerouting a lot of his tanks, really good movement from him. He has to siege them up. But does he have enough? And again, just +1, so these tanks are 3-shotting Dandy's tanks, not quite dealing enough damage to hold the line. And Dandy is going to push through, sieges up a couple tanks. He has access to this mined out base, but soon I think he will notice that, you know, this base here is not important. What's important is denying mid-right. And the thing is, by denying this high ground, though, he does deny the reinforcement route for TerrOr. Like, it's impossible for TerrOr to bring more units to this mid-right, so it will crumble soon.
Yeah, this is going to be game over for TerrOr because he just has no way of getting out. And the fact that we see +1 armor for TerrOr means that that was not +2 spinning at all this entire time. So there's just going to be a permanent, massive damage output lead for Dandy. No way he can save this base. Vultures can just stream in here and eventually kill this. So this is going to be TerrOr losing his really only mining gas base with the main and natural mined out. And you're starting to think, well, what can TerrOr do? Well, I see a drop in Dandy's base, but I think it's only 1.
Yeah, it looks like there's a drop in Dandy's base. Not sure, though. I was going to say, like, the starports, yeah, it is only a couple tanks. They're not really going to do too much there. And yeah, okay, I was going to say, the one thing these players have not been really pumping anything out of their starports, but finally dropships are coming into play. And Dandy, you know, playing really well. I mean, he has the dropships of his own to match TerrOr's timing on the dropship, so he's going to be able to clean this up. You know, that is kind of an annoying drop because, you know, it chips away at your depots, chips away at the starport over there. Finally, a couple units get dropped down. He has 3-2 now, so these units are just insanely well upgraded. +2 finishes for TerrOr, which is important. That means that the tanks will always 2-shot the opposing tanks. But, you know, the armor upgrades and the extra attack upgrades are just so good when you're doing these busts and just attack moving. Well, TerrOr with, yeah, last-ditch hope. He's unloading the boys on top of tanks. Coming in here, he might be able to bust this position. We'll see. Dandy needs to focus fire these tanks. Again, so many shots onto the vultures, but finally, like, he notices. See, notice how the tanks are always firing TerrOr's tanks. Really well done from him. And with that, I think TerrOr
yeah, this is going to be it. There's just not enough for TerrOr. He's basically not mining at this point. Doubling supply. Dandy is going to take our second game. There is the GG.